So, after putting up a huge introduction to Age of Renaissance here, I did want to add to it, and I mentioned I would, the different advances that are available. Because unlike in a game like Civilization, where there's only a handful that have real effects, in this game, every single one has some special effect in addition to to just the points that it provides, which I find kind of interesting, but it is also part of the pain. So let's look at the sciences. The first one is allows transit of a sea as a coastal province. Very cool. You can cut across one of these for a movement point on the galley chart. Human body reduces misery by one space. You get a free bonus misery reduction. And then there's a card, Mysticism, that actually every science lessens mysticism. Basically, you take 4 misery results, -1 for each science you have. Not sure how much sense that really makes. Again, there's a particular viewpoint expressed in this that religion bad, science good in terms of the misery of the people. I don't particularly buy into that at all. I don't think that the scientific advances that made the Industrial Revolution happen made people any happier than a pastoral life did. And yes, there's a cost to certain religious factors in life. The struggles of the 30 Years' War, etc. Wow, that certainly made people miserable. But supporting the church, having a weekly communion with the people and with your with a certain level of philosophy that you might not get otherwise. I don't think those things necessarily are harmful. It's kind of interesting. I'm watching The Survivor's second season by Brett Alone, the scenario right now, and it particularly goes into that issue. Hey, there is a place for this. There is something that, maybe not God, but the formal religion actually does provide incidentally. Okay, laws of matter. Voids alchemy. Alchemy destroys your gold. It's an event that comes in, and you lose, I think, half the gold that you had written down on your last bid, but knowing that there's no alchemy means you won't risk that, and it prevents it. Enlightenment makes misery relief half the price. Okay, let's go to the next set, the communication set. Written record. When you take advantage of a leader's bonus, just for actually using them to obtain the advance, not for using the printed word advantage that we'll see in a moment, you get an extra $10 off. That's a really cool ability, especially if you're using the patronage and taking advantage of the leaders that get played out there. You can get your advances much more cheaply as long as you're willing to take the ones of opportunity that show up. Printed word, on the other hand, allows you, hey, I already have the advance, but I have the card in my hand. I'll toss it down, and I get the money as just a cash bonus in my hand. Master Art, this is really cool. Remember, you can only have a certain amount of cards in your hand, or you start paying a penalty for them. Well, Master Art allows you each turn to discard one of your cards during the buy card phase. Just get it out of your hand and back into the discard pile, or if it's not a recyclable card, out of the game entirely. That can be very, very valuable, not just towards maintaining your hand stability. You have to pay this certain cost each turn, but there may be cards that you never want to see played, and you can get them out of the game this way. Most especially before the end of the game phase, where everything that you hold gets thrown out and played. And this is the only way to get cards out. Renaissance. Okay, this one. During the order of play phase. So once you bid your order of play, once per turn, you're allowed to trade And generally, you want to do this as early as possible because it's good to be early, right from the very beginning. But you have a choice to not do it early. You're allowed to take 2 of the turn markers. And remember, these are based on the bids you made. The guy who's above you bid for more counters or for more counters than you did. So it would really behoove him, with all his counters, to swap with you. And now not only does he have more counters, but he goes before you. That's sort of the best of both worlds. Well, you can do that once with one non-owner of this. So once you have Renaissance, you can start trickling your way down in terms of order of play. You can only do it with somebody who's adjacent to you. I didn't explain these little things during the description. In certain numbers of players, you play with different orderings there. And so in 6 players, you play with all of them. But in 3 players, you don't play with these. In 4 players, you don't play with these. And in 5 players, you don't play with this one. It's important which particular order you're in, which particular box, as opposed to just a linear ordering, because of the effects on the colored die being greater than the order of play. So skips in the order of play are important as you get less players. Okay, religion. These are interesting. When you buy religion, any religion you get an automatic misery increase. Again, I kind of disagree with what they speak about there. The implication just does not fit me. I know there were, but it really does disturb me. So in this particular, the first one, patronage, this allows you to to borrow a leader that's been played out here and use its advantage. If money's been placed on that leader, you have to pay the player of the leader that money in order to use the patronage. But if there's no money there, you get to use them for free. Holy indulgence. This is a really, really scary thing if you don't have it. And we touched this in the rules. You trade, for each person who doesn't have holy indulgence, they have to give you 2 of their counters. And you take them from your stock. So again, if everybody doesn't have it but one person, the one person gets 2 counters from each person, 10 extra counters, and everybody else loses 2. If everybody has it but one person, that one person loses 10 counters to each person, which can be devastating. Gaining 10, real nice bonus. Losing 10, hard to recover from. Proselytism. When you attack, as long as the color die is greater than or equal to the order of play. So you have a slightly greater chance of winning in competitions than you would otherwise. Doesn't really affect much. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't affect your choice of order of play particularly. Except that you have some chance as the 6th player of winning on the green die. But you still always have a chance because the black and white die also help determine. And cathedral. Cathedral gives you a little blockade, a little checkbox here that on each turn you can use your ability once against each person who doesn't have it. Instead of rolling the dice for a competition, you can just declare, I win. But you only can use it once against each person, and they can't have the cathedral. Okay, some of these others. Overland East. This is a huge factor in the game. Area 5, you can't go in here without this. You need this. It doesn't matter what else you have. You need this to get in there. You cannot get in there with, New World or anything else if you don't have it. Seaworthy vessels. This allows you to basically sail wherever the hell you want. You don't have to count movement points at all on the main European map. The ocean navigation. This allows you to reach the far eastern provinces. The number of boxes of ocean navigation that you have, and it costs $10 to slide your ship marker from one box to the next, same as it did for galleys, same as it does over here. They just have a different effect. The number of boxes, the number in the box is the number of these territories you can actually have pieces in. So if you only have level 1 of that, you can only occupy one of these trade zones outside of Europe. And then New World opens up the 2 New World spaces, which you notice have 3 different commodities each in them. The Far Eastern ones have 2 commodities each. They're just more valuable. And it also reduces your misery by 1 space per turn during the income phase, the New World. Commerce. These are interesting in the sense that these must be purchased exactly in order. Well, you must have caravan to get wind, watermelon, etc. down the line. Caravan we already explained because it's really important at the beginning of the game. You're allowed to skip a space as long as there's room for a piece to walk through it. I.e., you can't go through a place that's completely filled in population, but you can walk through other spaces or ones that don't have established pieces. So for example, this would block, but this would not, because it was free at the beginning of the turn. Wind water mill. In this one, now this is a weird little thing. This allows you to buy a trade attempt after you beat someone in a market. I almost never see this done. You win a battle. You pay a number of your markers equal to the market number of the captured location. So for example, here it would cost you 3. You'd have to pay 3 more counters from your available into your stock, and then you roll a die. And if you roll less than or equal to that market number, you're allowed to make a trade with someone else. Now that trade is you hand a card from your hand and draw one at random from the victim. You can get rid of cards you don't really need this way. More impressive, you might be able to steal a card that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. Largely, I have not seen people use this. I think it's just too expensive. The number of tokens and the chance of getting something. But sometimes you have an extra token that you didn't account for. Circumstances arise that, end up putting you in a position where maybe an extra token or 2 is worthwhile if you take a small area, well, a 2-point area, and force a trade that way. Improved agriculture. This drops your misery by a space immediately. It also reduces the effect of famine. Now, I don't remember how it does that. I know grain reduces it. It may be agriculture. See how famine. All players gain 4 minus 1 for each grain they hold. Improved agriculture is also a space. Okay, so yeah, each grain province you hold reduces your famine effect, and reduced agriculture or improved agriculture reduces it by 1. Not a terribly useful thing. I mean, it helps you a little, but you wouldn't be aiming for it. Interest and profit. This is one of the biggies. After you expand, and we already touched on this. If you have cash left over in your hand after you've expanded your counters, and this is after you've done all the purchaser pass and all that, you've spent all your money. Most turns you spend everything because that's the way to be efficient. Well, in this case, you get to double your money that you have lying around in your hand. The money that you've left not doing anything. It's sort of an investment type idea. Well, it's a hard call to do that, but the payoff can be tremendous, and the payoff can be as high as your income is, which could be a pretty decent quantity of money. Of course, you're taking a pass on a purchase or pass phase usually to get a big doubling like that. It's still worth it usually in terms of if you get this ability, you do want to take advantage of it. And once you cycle it once, you can usually keep that spare cash sitting around and not fall behind any further. and just keep cycling through, keep that cash around and keep getting the investments. Unfortunately, the game's usually just about over by the time somebody gets one of these. Perhaps because they're going to win with this very easily. But even if they didn't, someone else is probably in pretty good shape. Industry, every commodity that you have at least one of, you're considered to have another one of. You've always got one higher than what you would normally get, which really can increase your payoffs, and it makes it easier to get a large collection. So wool, if you can get 4 of them, or silk, if you can get 4 of the silk, that's a lot of board presence to maintain. But managing all 6 is going to be really, really tough to hold on to all game. To boost yourself by 1, though, you can see you get a significant amount of money. $72 difference between this, $88 difference between 5 and 6. So if you can get some commodities that you have high numbers in, having the industry can really help you a lot. On the other hand, if you have a stone, having another stone isn't terribly valuable because you only gain $3 off that. You want to specialize in getting large numbers of commodities anyhow, but this gives you a little boost in that direction. All right, let's go to the Civics. Urban Ascendancy. Each turn you can spend $10 to get an extra card. Now, cards are dangerous because they sit in your hand and they become a misery burden, but overall, it's good to have cards. Are they worth $10 each? Most of the time, yeah. For example, let's say you get a leader. A leader is almost always going to be worth $20 or $30 advantage off a certain card. Events, you have a lot of power in targeting and affecting them. What commodities come out? You can hold on, and this is the thing that was hard for me to understand, although it's kind of key to the whole game. You can hold a commodity and work towards getting it. It's worth paying a couple bucks a turn to try to get your number of that commodity up to a larger, to the higher values. I tended to say, hell, I'm never going to get these anyway, and throw it and play it. Or, I could use the bonus now and grab a little bit of money. It's much, much better to target the ones that you know are coming. Nationalism. Each area in the map is numbered. We touched this a little earlier. For example, we've got area 1 up here, I think. Area 2 over here. 3 in the middle. 4. And I don't know where they start going from there. But with nationalism, your home country sits in one area and you're able to attack with 1 less piece. Hey, that's something I forgot to mention in the rules, by the way. But you're able to attack with 1 less piece. So for example, here, I still would need 2 pieces to go into Valencia. But if someone else was there, and this is my home area, if someone else was there, let's say Paris has a city here, normally it would take 4 to attack that, but because I get to attack with 1 less piece because of nationalism, it only takes 3 to get the chance to roll the dice. Now, what is it I forgot to tell you during the rules? I forgot to mention these little white areas, which provide an additional defensive bonus. They only have a population limit of 1, so you can have 1 piece there. But if you have an established piece there, it provides an extra point of defense to each of these, which means the attacker needs an extra piece to attack. That can be countered with nationalism, of course. But, okay. Institutional research provides 10 credits for any advance except civics and religion. You get 10 extra bucks off any purchase you make, except for in the civics or religion. Really, really valuable little option. Cosmopolitan. Okay, remember we were just talking about these things? These are called satellites. Well, Cosmopolitan allows you to add the bonus when you attack. They reduce the cost of going into the areas next to them. Now, just because there's an arrow here doesn't mean you can walk here. You still need a boat to get here. It's just it influences these areas. And you'll see a few places like that with the C connections. And then finally, middle class. This gives you an extra $10 a turn during your income phase. And that's nice, but it's an expensive ability for that kind of cash. However, it also halves the cost of stabilizing your hand, which means you can hold that fifth card without going up 2 spaces in the blue area. I don't know how big a deal, so by having stabilization, it reduces the misery cost as well, but it also prevents you from gaining misery on some of the lower ones. Anyway, nice little ability there. I'm going to load this one up. This is sort of an addendum to the rules intro, because that was getting so long. I think it's important, in fact it's vital, to know what all of these do in order to play the game. It's also fairly important to know what the card mix is. What are the bad things that are going to happen? What are the good things that could happen to plan for, etc. It's like a CDG in that aspect. If you want to be surprised by the game, it's fun and all, but for the most part, the events aren't that surprising. You've got leaders, no big shock there. They're already spelled out for you. You've got commodities, which are explained here, how many are coming in each deck. So this information is easily seen. The only thing that's kind of neat not to know is maybe the events. There aren't a lot of them, though, and they can be fairly important as to how you want to plan, etc. All right, I'm going to load this one up.